Welcome to Psychology 313. Study Section 1. Introduction to Comparative Psychology. Introduction. In this study section, you will be introduced to comparative psychology. You will also explore the importance of this branch of psychology. Finally, we will examine the contributions of pioneer psychologists in the field of comparative psychologists. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this section, you should be able to 1. Outline the essentials of comparative psychology. 2. Discuss the importance of comparative psychology. 3. Discuss the contributions of key people to the field of comparative psychology. Substance of comparative psychology. Psychology as a discipline has many different fields of study, one of which is comparative psychology. Comparative psychology is the branch of psychology concerned with the study of living things, behavior. Comparative psychology often utilizes the comparative method to study animal behavior. The comparative method involves comparing the similarities and differences among species to gain an understanding of evolutionary relationships. The comparative method can also be used to compare modern species of animals to ancient species. The major behavioral patterns among animals studied by comparative psychologists include animal communication, learning, migration, orientation, reproductive behavior, and social behavior. Communication is the sharing of information among animals. Learning concerns the gaining of knowledge or skill. Migration is the travel of large groups of animals. Orientation consists of the ways that animals position themselves in relation to light, heat, and other forces. Reproductive behavior concerns the mating habits of animals and the way they care for their young. Social behavior includes such group activities as the flocking of birds or the hunting strategies of wolves. All of the above behavioral patterns form the core of comparative psychology, which has generated interest and informed numerous research efforts in the field. Importance of comparative psychology. Comparative psychology is an interdisciplinary field that blends psychological and biological approaches to the study of animal and human behavior. As such, it is relevant to many other areas of academic psychology, including developmental psychology, social psychology, individual differences, and so on. Knowledge derived from the study of comparative psychology has implications for dealing with practical issues such as animal welfare, the conservation of wild population, and the management of captive populations, among others. In a global environment, knowledge of comparative psychology is important to psychologists, students of psychology, and other disciplines because it helps to broaden our understanding not only of human behavior, but that of animals too. With increasing understanding of animal behavior, we are better placed to appreciate differences and similarities, how man and animals behave. Indeed, studies using animals as samples have led to numerous discoveries about the way human beings are likely to behave under different conditions. Besides, the usefulness of comparative psychology in determining differences and similarities between human and animal behaviors. Comparative psychology also encompasses the study of differences and similarities in the behavior of animals of different species. For example, comparative psychologists may study how different species of animals, such as dogs, birds, elephants, and other animals raise their young. The interest could also be the study of the complete behavioral pattern of two or more related species. For instance, the feeding, mating, and other behavioral patterns of two cats may be studied. Blue balls. 1. Comparative psychology is a branch of psychology concerned with the study of animal behavior using comparative method. 2. It is relevant to many other areas of academic psychology, including developmental psychology, social psychology, individual differences, and so on. 3. Knowledge derived from the study of comparative psychology has implications for dealing with practical issues such as animal welfare. 4. It helps to broaden our understanding of human and animal behavior. Development of comparative psychology. Every discipline has a set of pioneers that have made major contributions to the development of the field. Some of the most influential people whose pioneering works have shaped the field of comparative psychology include Al-Jazari, a 9th century Afro-Arab scholar who wrote many books on social organization of ants and animal communication and psychology. Ibn al-Attal, the 11th century Arabic psychologist, who wrote the first book that details the effects of music on animals, in brackets, treatise on the influence of melodies on the souls of animals. Charles Darwin, whose theory and evolutionary principles explains the factors that set humans apart, such as higher mental, moral, and spiritual faculties. Douglas Pandis, who was called the first experimental biologist, worked mostly with birds, studied instinct, imprinting, and visual and auditory developments. 7. Sir John Lubbock, who was credited with first using mazes and puzzles devices to study learning. Ivan Petrovich Pavlov, 1849 to 1936, was the first to describe the phenomenon referred to as conditioning in experiments with dogs. Irene Pepperberg, who is noted for her studies in animal cognition, particularly in relation to parrots, one of which is her comparative studies into the cognitive fundamentals of language and communication. John Broadus Watson, 1878 to 1952, was an American psychologist who established the psychological school of behaviorism. Using the principles of behaviorism, Watson put the emphasis on external behavior of people and their reactions on given situations, rather than the internal mental state of those people. In his opinion, the analysis of behaviors and reactions was the only objective method to get insight in the human actions. Further still, Watson vigorously promoted the idea that children had no inborn tendencies, but rather were shaped by their environments. Boas Frederick Skinner, 1904 to 1990, also an American psychologist who pioneered work on experimental psychology and behaviorism, an approach which seeks to understand behavior entirely in terms of responses to stimuli. Summary. In this study section, you learned 1. The meaning and essential attributes of comparative psychology. 2. The importance of this branch of psychology to knowledge development, which includes A. Broadening understanding of human and animal behavior, and B. Practical solution on animal welfare. 3. The contribution of pioneer psychologists. End of study section 1. Thanks for listening.